Think about the last time you felt invisible. Maybe it was at work or in a social setting or while you were doing something for someone who barely noticed you were there. For a lot of people, life starts to feel transactional. You're treated well when you're useful, acknowledged when you're needed, and maybe you've had the quiet realization that many of your relationships feel like this, where being seen is conditional and being ignored is a default. What if this isn't just bad manners or people having a rough day? What if we're living inside an unspoken hierarchy where people are valued based on their role, their status, and what they're there to do for us? Not a caste system written into religion or law, but one enforced through everyday behavior. Who gets celebrated, who gets eye contact, who gets respect. And nowhere is that more visible than in the service industry, where entire groups of people are treated as interchangeable, easy to ignore, and even easier to dehumanize. That's why we sat down with Steve Fortunato. Steve has spent decades in hospitality, watching how people treat one another when power, money, and stress collide. He's seen what it does to people who are ignored all day, and what it does to a culture that slowly learns to accept that kind of invisibility as normal. If you're new to Mighty Pursuit, we exist to make sense of the whole person, mind, body, and spirit, not as vague wellness cliches, but as deeply interconnected parts of your everyday experience. And today's conversation lives in our service category, because at our best, we're most alive when we live beyond ourselves. Spiritual traditions have said this for centuries, and science now backs it up. And in this episode, Steve helps us see how an unspoken hierarchy gets in the way of that, how it shows up everywhere in our work, in our relationships, in our institutions. But he doesn't just name it, he shows us exactly how it works. And then he shows us the way out, bringing freedom to you and the people around you. So let's begin. All right, so Steve, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
About a month ago, I'm working at home and we don't really have any groceries. So I hop on the Uber Eats app, and here in New York, you get all your groceries pretty quick on there. And so anyway, there's a couple important items that I had put in there. And it had been a long day, and then I was looking at the price and the the cost to actually deliver to the home and all the fees that gets added. So I was in an irritated mood. And anyway, put in the order, then go back to what I'm doing. Look back at the order, like, I don't even know, it was 45 minutes, an hour later. And then they replaced all the items, like, with other things. And I just hopped on the app, and I was like very short. I was like, no, I didn't want that. Like, I wanted this. And I was just like back and forth. I wasn't saying anything overtly rude, but like the energy, like I could feel the energy in myself was just like, it was just like a rude energy.
Yeah.
And then the guy got to the house, and I still kind of had that energy. Like, okay, yeah, thank you. And I share this because I'm like, here I am, like, getting all worked up over these groceries that this guy is delivering. And meanwhile, this guy probably has like 3 jobs, picking it up in the cold, like going through this. And I was just like, wow, like, how did I get in this like state? And I tee that up because I'm like, as a hospitality, you've been in the hospitality industry, like, is that just like my own like bad manners, or is that like a common thread and theme that you see when it comes to the way that we like treat people and the treatment of people in these kind of industries?
It's your own bad manners. You're a horrific human. No, man. I think that I have been a witness, a victim, and an oppressor of everything that you've just described in the hospitality sense.
Yeah.
I think those moments we are easily hijacked by the right that we feel to better, accurate, faster. And it's in the water, and it's certainly been in the water that I drink. And meeting you on the field of confession, I would say that a big part of what drives me is the awareness of what it should be, what we could be, and recognizing the delta between where I am and who I want to be.
Yeah.
And trying to live more aligned, trying to actually embody what I believe hospitality is meant to be, because I feel like our collective idea of what hospitality is very confused right now. So
So after that experience happened, I became convicted about this when, Good Fortune, which is Aziz Ansari's new movie, came out and had Seth Rogen and it had Kanye Reeves. And so Kanye Reeves plays this angel, and Aziz Ansari is like this, he works on delivery apps, and so delivering food, and then Seth Rogen's this rich guy. And so Kanye Reeves has him switch lives. And then they're both on like the receiving end of what one's experiencing what being rich is like, and the other one is the rich guy is now experiencing what it's like to be a service driver. And it just really convicted me because of how much we lose our own humanity, and
for sure,
when we get so used to the fast, the better, but then also like these like hierarchies. And so like even when you're running your businesses, like that sort of like treatment, like how often is like that the norm? Is that the air that like we're breathing in right now?
I think that there is a subconscious class system that exists, but we just don't name it. We just have, we have the delivery class, the dishwasher class, the, baggage handling class, the ticket counter class, the janitor class, the server class, the flight attendant class, the captain class, the passenger and coach, the passenger and premium. I feel like we are aware of a social hierarchy, but we just don't name it, although we play by its rules. And I think, and I'm raising my hand as someone who is culpable, are offended when we feel like people have not played their part accurately.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much over history that's been made about like the caste system in India, and that's almost like offensive to us in the West. And while it's not written into like religion or law in where we live, like there is that, like you're talking about. I mean, I think everybody could like immediately like sense themselves in an organization, at their job, how much money they have, what they have to offer, quote unquote, other human beings, and we all get slotted. And so I think, losing your humanity, and then the people that are quote unquote at the bottom of that, like not only how hard life is, but how terribly they end up getting treated. And it feels like this thing that we're simultaneously trying to climb, and then we're also like doing it to the people that are quote unquote beneath us or beside us. And so, I mean, running your business is like, did you just come to expect like that it would become normal? Like when you're reading your book, there was like examples that really popped out at me. Did it just become normal to expect sort of that treatment, especially for like servers or other people that are working like on your team?
I would say on one hand, yes, you were not shocked by that sort of treatment. But as I talked about in the book, I also do believe that there are energetic cycles that we can create and co-create that hopefully begin to change the dynamic. And so if we go first in trying to make others feel valued authentically, and I think it starts behind the veil, right? Like if I'm berating my staff behind the door, and then I say, now go out and show these people a good time, and they come out and put a smile on their face and go, hi, we're so happy to see you. People can read through that performance. But I think if there is authentic value of others that is communicated, I do feel like there are times when that can create a different cycle and what happens energetically. But having said that, I think a big part of me, what led to the writing of this book was recognizing the conflict inside of me, that I, as an entrepreneur and as a founder, I wanted to climb. I wanted our company to be noticed. I loved the disruptive brands. I loved Volcom and Trader Joe's and Southwest, and, would read, books and anthologies of these businesses that disrupted the system, and Cirque du Soleil and all these blue ocean concepts that did it differently. And I wanted our company to be noticed for doing it differently. I wanted our company to be noticed for, how much we valued people. And even as I say that, I can hear the conflict in that. I wanted to be valued, but I'm in the valuing people business. And I just had a real serious reckoning that you can't do those two things at the same time. You can't make other people feel valued while trying to feel valued yourself. You can't get it and give it at the exact same time. We're incapable of it. It's like looking at two different places with one set of eyes. We cannot do it. And the way that the cycle of value works is just like breathing. The way that our lives are sustained is that the breath that I need, the only way I get that next breath is if I give the breath that I have away and make room for that next breath. That is the ecology of value. And you don't have to believe it, just like you don't have to believe in gravity. But if you jump off a building, gravity is going to kick in. Disregarding or irrespective of your belief, and value is much the same way. So I realized that the only way to talk to my company and talk to my customers about who we are as an organization was that I had to embody that message as a human, as a husband, as a father, and as a leader. And that is hard. It is hard to be leading a company and not feel the crave of climb, to set out to do something disruptive in a noble way and not feel this appetite for being noticed as an organization. And so I really have had to face my own cravings and ask myself, are you willing to embody this message? Are you willing to be someone that values others? Are you willing to check yourself when the Uber Eats delivery person drives you absolutely mad? And we have to give ourselves grace. I mean, it's funny to hear you share that story because, you strike me as a much kinder, gentler human than I am. And so I think your irritated Matthew would be like a very tame version of my irritated self. But LA it's a wild place, and it is hard in a city that is calibrated for climbing to not try to, step and stand on the hands of others while you're trying to go up the ladder.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting you use the language that you had been in, the victim of this and the oppressed, oppressor, all those things. So I feel like we do find ourselves in both of those roles. And And there's something so tempting about, I mean, using the word climbing, trying to climb up this unspoken hierarchy. And I think that, we're in New York, you were based in LA with your businesses, and particularly in cities like that is the air that you breathe. You feel it in your social interactions when you are talking with people, and it's like, oh, well, who do they know? And who do they know? It's like, it's like you're not actually being seen you're looking past the person in front of you. They're looking past you to see what's the next thing that are going to help me rise. And, it can be exhausting for sure.
Yes. I imagine it is, I don't imagine it is exhausting. I've embodied that exhaustion, and I do think it takes an incredible amount of self-awareness to recognize it in ourselves. Because those things get said all the time. We live in a transactional city and everybody wants something from everybody else. But I think that transformation becomes more possible when we say, I am looking at relationships in a transactional way. I am culpable of going, what can I get out of this? And that is where I feel hospitality is existentially urgent. The hospitality that I am talking about comes from an awareness that I have an abundance of everything I am trying to get out of this conversation. Mm-hmm. Conversations and interactions change when I come into them knowing I have enough attention, I have enough credibility, I have enough airtime, I have enough applause, I have enough credit, I have enough acceptance. Out of the abundance of that, I'm going to offer some of that to you. I don't think we're always aware of what we're trying to get energetically out of conversations because it's just been so programmed inside of us. Existentially, I think that society has been in this hunting and gathering phase for a very long time. And that's fine. But when all you do is hunt and gather and hunt and gather and hunt and gather, eventually you strip the life out of the thing. And we have to start thinking about the cycle of value creation, not just value extraction, because we're coming into these interactions trying to extract value from them. Matthew's a podcast host. What can I get out of this interaction? Could I get, what can I get from him? I'm trying to extract value. And that is the calibration of so many of us in society. It's not a habit. It is the air and the water that we exist in. It's hunting and gathering energetically. And I think that a shift comes when we start thinking about value creation. How does the tree come to be in the forest? Yeah, we need to harvest trees. That's how we're going to build stuff. But we also need to plant them, you know? And so that's where I think hospitality, it's not just about gestures. It's not just about knowing that Matthew really loves Nikes and I found this rare pair of Nikes and shipped it to his house. Yeah. That's awesome. That's rad. But it's also about going, can I settle that I have enough? Actually, I have so much that I have an abundance of the things that I am normally trying to get energetically from conversations. I'm actually enough. I have enough. And out of that abundance, I'm going to give. And that's value creation and interactions as opposed to value extraction.
You know, when everything is built on extraction, right? So if this is the way that everybody like operates as a society, what do you think happens like when large groups of people feel unseen or disposable every day?
I think it's dire. I think it's really dire. I think that when large groups of people feel unseen and disposable, you either start to resign and stop putting anything positive out into your society, or you try to take. And both of those have really bad outcomes played out on a meta level.
What sorts of feelings do you feel like welled up for you when you felt caught in this cycle?
Indignant, envy, a lot of envy. This exhausting ping pong between shame and aggrandizement, I'm nothing, I'm everything, I don't deserve, I absolutely deserve, and it's honestly a lot of torment, entropy is torture, and that vicious cycle of I'm not enough. I'm not seen. I need to prove that I am. And therefore I exploit and I take from the people around me, and they are a means to me getting my appetite for more satiated. And I perform for the people that I'm supposedly serving, which transforms them into critics because they don't actually feel served. They feel like, performed for, which immediately shifts their psychology. And instead of asking, am I fulfilled? They ask, am I impressed? This vicious cycle it spins and it becomes entropy, and it creates torment and torture. And there is no peace, and there is no joy, and there is no generativity in it. You don't create anything.
Is there something about the modern world that creates these sort of conditions? Or do you feel like this has always kind of been the story if you date back years and years?
To me, it feels like something is accelerating. It feels like the appetite is accelerating, and simultaneously the awareness of the dead endness of this approach also seems to be rising. It seems like there's these cracks of a third way, an alternative. A lot of the people that sit at this table offer third way solutions. So I don't know if it's always been like this. I do think that in Western society, and certainly America, this mindset of hunting and gathering and value extraction has consumed us. And I feel like there's these areas of, and I mean this almost in a spiritual sense, not in a literal sense, but I feel like I get this image of like that we have extracted value so much, whatever the value is. And if we were to go to the areas where value has been extracted from, we would see these barren wastelands, and they would leave us shocked and sobered at the voraciousness of our own appetite. And I know that sounds a little bit existentially.
What's an example of that?
What's an example of that? Well, I think about clothing, I think about, how, you can buy a pair of jeans for $15 and you can buy a sweater for, and these places in the world where there's just oceans of discarded clothes,
yeah.
Like literally like oceanfuls of discarded clothes.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think if we were to take the psychological route, or like, why are things the way that they are, or why are we locked into this cycle? Why are we trying to climb? I think it's an interesting picture. I think even for myself, potentially, the reason why I had responded that way on the app, like if I'm just sitting there and having a nice little quiet day, maybe I wouldn't have responded that way. I wonder how much exhaustion is. I mean, the cycle that you're describing is exhausting in itself, but if we were to really get in touch with our own like emotions, like how much of the way that we're treating ourselves do you think is emotional exhaustion, in the sense that people are like overwhelmed and depleted, that they don't even have time to like pause to see the person in front of them?
it's very difficult for us to figure out how to create space in our own lives to recognize our own contentment and our own fulfillment. And so I think, one of the things I was talking about with Pamela earlier is that for me, I am finding more and more that guidance and peace and wisdom and joy is found in subtraction and not addition. And what I mean by that is more content, more information, more activity, more commitments, more idea, just more, that I can't actually hear the wisdom and the guidance of my own soul. Parker Palmer talks about the soul as a wild animal, and that if you want to see a wild animal in the forest, you don't stomp through the forest and shout, come out wherever you are. You tiptoe into the forest and you sit down by the base of a tree and you just quietly wait. And over time, the wild animal will emerge. And I feel like that resetting, that place of contentment, that place of fulfillment, that felt sense that I'm okay, I have enough, I'm good, I'm safe, I'm loved, everything I need, I have. Those messages come in the quiet that we create for ourselves. They are not lightning bolts that are going to interfere with our feeds. They're just not. I don't care how many wise, inspiring messages you hear, how many clips on Instagram you see, they don't infiltrate onto the level of the soul. That's like solitude work. That's like, it takes a second. And most of us don't know how to subtract out. I remember, I think it was in Wherever You Go, There You Are by Jon Kabat-Zinn. I think he said most people are more comfortable reading about meditating than actually meditating. I'd love to hear a podcast on meditating. And I went to this seminar about meditating, but just sitting and meditating, I find that that's actually more challenging than learning about meditating. Yeah. So, I do think that there is a deep exhaustion, that we feel collectively, and at least the places, Matthew, where I find rest, those are slow, quiet, subtracted places.
Do you feel like if someone's listening, they feel like they almost feel like it's a luxury to stop? What would you say to that person?
Your life depends on it. It is not an indulgence to stop. You will never stop until you realize you're enough. That soundtrack, that loop of don't stop, more, climb, get, hunt, gather, establish, grow, that tape will never stop, and it will drive you into your grave, and it will rob you from all peace and all connection and relationship, because you will constantly be calibrated to getting something out of relationship that you can only get from yourself. And the way that you get it is to stop. It's urgent. It's not an indulgence or a luxury.
In your years in hospitality, how does exhaustion show up in people?
Entitlement.
Yeah.
Shows up as an entitlement. It's a big way that it shows up. Offendability. Misalignment with their own values. Those are three that just off the top of my mind. I mean, would you like me to keep thinking about how exhaustion manifests? Those are a couple that just immediately come to mind.
Yeah.
I can try to think about more.
I mean, I think it's interesting because we were talking a little bit earlier about how some of this is unconscious.
I think a lot of it is unconscious.
And how we don't really, when we're caught in these cycles, we don't really recognize that we're climbing.
Yeah.
And so we might not even be recognize the ways and the indicators that we are exhausted.
Yeah. Most of us have really poor relationships with ourselves.
Yeah.
And we haven't actually, and I'm saying that from experience, you know? And I think that some, I'm a big fan of Liz Gilbert, and I listen to the way that she speaks to herself, and I love it. And it usually makes me cry every single time I hear it. Having said that, I don't know a lot of dudes that talk to themselves that way. And we have to, the wisdom that she is espousing of cultivating a loving relationship with yourself, that cannot be allocated to one cross section of society, you know, like that has to translate. It has to translate to men. It has, like, men have to figure out how to cultivate a positive, aware relationship with themselves. Tough alpha dudes have to figure out, how can I speak kindly to myself? How can I have a good relationship with myself? It's the wisdom that she is espousing is universal. It is urgent for all of us. And so, I think until we learn how to have a relationship with ourselves, this kind of awareness doesn't really come, because we're operating unconscious.
Yeah. I mean, the exhaustion piece, which is interesting, is there are certain circumstances in life that might make you exhausted if you feel financially strapped or other things related to that. But then there's a piece that you were talking about with performance. And that in itself could make you feel exhausted. If you need to go from A to B to C, to go from the mid rung on this hierarchy to try to go to the middle top rung, just that push in itself could feel exhausting.
Are you saying that from experience or from observation?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think definitely both. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you from experience, it's exhausting. Yeah, I think that performance is not relegated to the entertainment industry. I think that performance is ubiquitous. You know, I think performance is perception management. I really want to manage how you perceive me. And so it's important that you see me as X, and whatever X is. Maybe X is a great husband, a good father, a good mom, a creative, a brilliant mind, someone who doesn't care about performance. That is a method of performing, is like, I'm above needing to perform. I'm just myself. I don't care. I think that perception management is another way of saying there's a part of me that is performing. And my God, I have mainlined that energy, and it's really exhausting. And, what I was saying earlier about finding the wisdom and the guidance of your own soul, once you subtract out the distractions, that place where you touch your own soul is a place of peace, and it's a place of restoration. And I think part of the reason why we are so exhausted is that we are rarely restored on a soul level, because we haven't known where to go for restoration. And I think that is a big part of what keeps us collectively exhausted, is this urge to manage how we are perceived.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting with your book. It's like we kind of hit a fork in the road when we're sort of in this mindset or this climbing this unspoken hierarchy or caste system, if you will, and you talk about how we start treating people like tools or threats. And so how does that actually play out in real life?
When my program is me-centric, it's about me, trying to prove my value, trying to establish myself because something is deeply unsettled in me. I'm not yet sure that I have established myself where I perceive I should be established. Okay. So there's something driving in me. There's an unsettledness in me. The people that I've enlisted to help me get there, I need them to, they are cogs in my wheel. They are rowing my boat. And as long as they're doing a great job, I'm like, hey, you're doing great. Thank you so much. And my message is all about how they get to participate in it and what's in it for them. And this is really about all of us collectively, but they can feel my bull. They know that like this is really about Steve. But that's okay because I'm, paying them. And so as long as they are in line, they're good. But the second that they stop, they are actually an encumbrance to what it is that I'm trying to do. And they become a threat, And so again, I think that it is subconscious, but when our program is centered on me and when it's rooted in the void of I've not yet X or I am not yet Y, when the void drives our mission, the people that we enlist to help us, we will view them as a help or a hindrance to where we are headed. And when you treat people like they are the help or a hindrance, it is felt by them. They can feel that. And so what they begin to energetically and consciously or subconsciously ask is, well, I'm the help or I'm a hindrance. This isn't about me. This is about him. So they ask, well, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this? And when people start asking, what do I get out of this? Their filter becomes what they're owed, my rights. And that is what lands them in entitlement. And that's that half of the cycle that I talk about. But I started it. The course that I set was crafted in a void. There's a void. There's something missing that I need, but I can't do it on my own. I gotta enlist people. And so I create that. The viciousness of that cycle starts with something being unsettled in me. I still need to prove.
I mean, have you watched people or even yourself like turn on a dime when it comes to relating to someone? If they're like
totally,
what does that look like?
Totally. So there was a server. It's like 25 years ago, so I can just say his name was Derek. I remember it like it was yesterday. And this guy showed up, and he loved how we approached events. And, I did all of this unorthodox stuff in catering, and we were sort of like my goal was to be the North Star was that we want to be the French Laundry of catering, so we were doing, this is back when molecular gastronomy was super in. And so we were doing all these fancy things, and, everything that we served, there was creativity folded into every aspect of it. If we were doing a big banquet, we didn't have those large oval trays that people walked out. We had these 10-foot planks, and people would carry, 12 entrees on these big 12-foot planks, and they would walk through, and people would be like getting out their phones as this like ship of food came across the banquet hall. And he was, such an advocate, and he loved it, and he'd rally the other servers. And I was like, man, this guy is bought in. And I don't remember how it happened, but at some point he did not get the break that he thought he was owed, or something about the staff meal, or something happened. And that guy emailed every server on our roster. I mean, this is 20 years ago, and we did a lot of really dumb things like send out emails with like 40 servers emails in the thing, no one blind copied. Sent us, filed a complaint with the labor board, alleged all of these untrue things, and tried to rally every single server on our staff roster to like echo his allegations to the labor board. And I had to go sit before the labor board with this, across the aisle from this server who 3 months ago had been like our biggest champion, going, I love this company and let's go guys and let's blow them away. And I was like, what changed him?
Yeah.
And the only thing that I can surmise is that, well, obviously there was, something going on with him. But also I think that everything was fine when he felt like he was treated the way he wanted to be treated. But sometimes we are culpable in creating that sense of entitlement in the people that we work with. And then it backfires on us and we're like shocked at, the forest fire, neglecting to remember that like we were the ones that was like, laying the kindling down.
If you really do like deep introspective work, and you could probably find some examples of, I mean, even when it comes to your own relationship, whether you have a girlfriend or boyfriend or you're married or whatever, like you could be in the presence of them, be like very cranky and talking a certain way. And then like someone else comes and you knocks on your door or whatever. Oh, hey. Yeah. And it's just like, I feel like people have this like on the dime ability in some situations, if you're in the presence of someone who can't give you anything, and then all of a sudden you're with someone who, maybe could advance your career or whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter like what mood you're in. It's like you can kind of like switch that mood immediately. If you feel like that person can help you climb. And it's interesting. I mean, if you've been around,
I married a woman who has an absolute allergic reaction to that.
What do you mean?
Because I've done that.
Yeah.
I've been, cranky and salty at home, and, people are coming over for dinner that are people of influence, and she is just like, I'm not having it. Like, I'm not coming to dinner. Like, if you're going to be that way before they get here, and then when they get here, you're like, hey, like, you can have it, And you're right. I think that if I'm honest with myself, that switch is rooted in opportunity. What's the opportunity here? Even if it seems noble, even if it's like, there's an opportunity for connection, but connection's an economy that like either you're living in or you're not. It's like water. You can't be like in the water and out of it. So if I've like broken connection here, if we are all truly connected and I have a broken connection with my family, I am not going to be able to forge an authentic connection with the person that's coming over for dinner because I've fractured connection here.
Yeah.
My wife knows that intuitively, and that's something I've had to learn, as like a moment maker, because I can like, host and make moments and make nice cocktails and serve fancy dinner, and people are like super happy, but I've stepped out of the water of connection.
Now, on the entitlement front, I mean, there's people listening who are part of whatever you would call the help, like, and they're coming alongside someone else's vision or whatnot. And perhaps they might be in environments with people that have great means. And so, there's a thing of watching how someone of great means interacts with other people. And so if you see that they treat people that are the help a certain way, but then you see them talk to their friend and it's like a different level. It's almost like a talking down or something. Is that along the same behavior line as what you're talking about? Like the fact of that when you have means and then you look at someone, you look down on them in a particular way that you wouldn't even speak to in your friend. Like what is happening there in terms of entitlement?
I've never met someone that is like, yeah, I'm entitled. Entitlement is not something that people often cop to. What is happening there, I think, is just unconsciousness.
Treating us people as subhuman is unconsciousness.
I've had a funny life living in LA and having a career that has served like a lot of famous people and a lot of really well-known people and a lot of people of means. I think that the entitlement is exposed in moments when we are not given what we think we are owed. And that is the litmus test. And so the talking down, I mean, I've been a witness, I've been a victim, and I've been an oppressor. So, nothing that I'm saying is from my perch of equanimity and altruism, I've spent a lot of times, just with my head in my hands going, what the hell did I just do? So, I think what is happening is that there is this base state of this is what I am owed. This is what I deserve. And when I get it, I'm like super kind. And especially because like I'm known and I'm a person of means. So like, hey, can I get you to, and you're like, yeah, absolutely. But the moment I do not get what I feel I deserve, like the tone shifts, like significantly shifts. And I have witnessed that in grand display numerous times.
So I guess what I'm hearing is like, as you accelerate this unspoken hierarchy caste system, if you will, the amount to which you feel entitled to like starts to increase.
Yes. So you felt as a podcast host living in New York, you felt, entitled to accurate service from Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Fast forward, say your profile and your influence and your empire grows, right now you might not feel, we tried to book a reservation at a restaurant that I wanted to take you tonight and they're fully booked.
Yeah.
So, you're fine with that. And I'm fine with that. And we're like, okay, well, go to a different restaurant. But as that grows, we might feel entitled to like, no, we're getting into that restaurant.
Yeah.
It's us. Find a table, So yeah, I think that, entitlement is an appetite. And the hard part is that all of us have to eat. All of us deserve some things. All of us are owed some things. Every human is owed some things. Every human has rights. Entitlement is just a preoccupation with what we're owed and a preoccupation with our rights and a preoccupation with what we deserve that is blinding. It is so consuming that I can no longer see what you deserve, what you're owed, what are your rights. It's about my rights, what I deserve. And that's the nature of entitlement, is it's blinding and it blocks us from seeing the other. And we live in a place and in a time that is talking a lot about our rights and what we deserve. And the problem is it's nuanced because we do deserve some stuff, but so do they. We are owed some stuff, but so are they.
Do you think that there's a level to which it becomes completely unreasonable. So if we're all like, oh, hey, roof over our head, bills covered, food on the table, healthy, stable relationships, like that's like a baseline, like humanity.
Yeah.
And so do you think there's a level of unreasonableness as our entitlement grows? Like, we don't need to go to that restaurant tonight, but like I'm owed that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what would you say about that?
Yeah. I think there is, I mean, essentially you are asking, is there such thing as gluttony? You know, is there such thing as an obesity of our rights? And I'm like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thought experiment if you think about, you know, New York, LA has highest concentrations of celebrities, I would say, in the United States. Maybe the English speaking world, probably the two cities alongside London. And I would say if you're probably, I mean, I'm not famous, so, but I would say if you're an A-lister, it probably is somewhat irritating if people are like stopping you on the street all the time, right? And so, but it's interesting, if we're doing this thought experiment, we're talking about if your fame dwindles, maybe you had like a hit record like 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden no one is coming up to you on the street.
Yeah.
I
know some of those people. I went to school in Malibu, so I have hung with some of those people.
And so you first of all, you hated it to begin with, but you got used to like people coming up to you and like almost entitled that like you're someone of importance. Mm-hmm. And now slowly like people stop caring to the degree that they once did. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you start getting on like probably getting these like funky places with entitlement and ego, and you experience some sort of extension of the human experience that was so far beyond the baseline. And now you're going back down to the baseline to like regular human. Yeah. I was actually reading a story about this happening. You know, Matt Harvey was a huge pitcher for the Mets like 10 years ago. Okay. And there was this whole boom where he was like uber famous. He got a couple injuries, hurt his arm, his career flamed out. Now he's working, I think, in insurance or something. But he's walking around the same city and he was like talking about how if like one person like comes up to him, it's like it's like a big thing. But there was a time like 10 years prior where like he began like every single person on the street is coming up to this person. Yeah. And so that inflation is like really interesting.
I think it must be torture. And I think that inflation, I think that's why I feel like the question of value is an existentially urgent one. Because if value is linked to attention or applause or validation, if those things are linked to our value, I cannot imagine a more torturous path than to have those things spike to where I am now swimming in a tsunami of applause and validation and appreciation, and day by day by day, drip by drip by drip, it starts to dry up. And what I then am concluding is, so is my value. And so I think that us settling this question of value is an urgent one. It's why the title of the book is The Urgent Recovery of Hospitality. And it's why I said earlier in the conversation that I think our collective understanding of what hospitality is so confused. You just brought up celebrity. Mixing celebrity and hospitality, it's like oil and water. Hospitality is like, I'm good. I have enough. Actually, I have an abundance. I want to share it with you. And when you bring this weird concept of celebrity into this place that is all about value creation, and that gets folded into the sauce of like, I'm going to provide value for you, but simultaneously, I'm also going to try to get value from you in showing you like, do you know who I am? Do you know what this restaurant is? Do you respect my empire? Have you seen how and it breaks the sauce. And so I think that hospitality is about the settling of our own plate, and our plate is full. We recognize our own abundance and we share it with others. And we're not trying to like also be like, here's, I need to get some too.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned the movie earlier, The Good Fortune with Aziz Ansari.
I've got to see this movie because I haven't seen it, and you keep bringing it up, and I can see that it impacted you powerfully.
Yeah, I think it.
Yeah.
If you watch it, it'll have a great bearing on this conversation. But,
okay.
I mean, I think it's interesting because if you think about this hierarchy and the people, quote unquote, on the bottom that are going to stepped on are the Uber drivers and working 17 jobs and like just trying to get by to like put something on their table for the family. But then you have all the people on the quote unquote top of this social hierarchy. There's a tremendous amount of emotional turmoil, which I think comes through in the movie about, someone that's rich, losing your money, losing your fame, losing whatever you're being celebrated for. And so in a sense, like it's not even a pleasant experience when you end up getting what you think that you want or that will be on the top. Unless you're operating from a place of like gratitude and enoughness to begin with, then that might, I guess, not have bigger bearing on your mood. Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
There's a what just came up for me, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm just gonna say it. Is there's a statement. There's a statement that was made by Jesus, and it was, "To him who has, more will be given." And I think there's a lot of different ways to look at that. And in one way, there's like an offensive, like, are you kidding me? Like, he already has. Like, why is he given more? But I think it actually speaks to the difference between a scarcity mentality and an abundance mentality. And I think that, like, if you feel like I have, I'm good, I'm enough, I have enough, more comes. I'm operating from a place of abundance as opposed to scarcity. Scarcity, I don't have. And so I'm trying to get. And when that is your condition, when that is the ecosystem of your life, even what you have will be taken from you. But to those that are actually like, I have, I'm good, more comes. And it's not psychology, it's ecology. It's the way that the cycle works. There is a direct relationship between value creation and value extraction. And so if all we're doing is extracting, then something is like, I don't have. I need to take. I need to get. I need more airtime in this conversation. I need more credibility in this conversation. I need more applause. Like, I'm trying to get because I don't have. But when I like have and I'm good, more comes. And that's the cycle.
Yeah, I think that there is, I mean, you're touching like an ancient spiritual truth to some of the ideas that we're talking about. Your ability to be, it's like if you go on the airplane and you're kind of like in coach and you kind of have a leg room, and so he who has is like you're in the coach seat.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, something happened. Come up front."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, I'll come up front.
Yes.
All right, enjoy. Versus the reverse.
On a flagrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus the reverse. I started in first, or like every single time is going to be in first.
That's right.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Makes a ton of sense.
And so, yeah, I mean, there seems to be a danger in when you accumulate things.
Yeah, I mean, that's circling back to the arc of influence that you spoke about and, what it might be like. I don't have any personal relationship with someone who has risen that arc, other than our buddy in common. I would imagine the only way to survive that is that along the whole ride, the question of value was like, it was settled. You had when you were in the, playing in the coffee house, you had, and more was given. And you had when you played in like the little 100-seat theater, and more was given. And then you had you had all along. And when you were in the stadium, you were like, my God, this is crazy. And then as that then came down the other side of the mountain, like the question of your value, it was settled. I would imagine, not having gone on that ride, the only sanity and the only peace in that would be found in just having the question of your own value like settled along the whole way. And like I said, I lived in Malibu, and I saw people who were on the top of the mountain, and I saw people who were like coming down the backside, and I saw people who like had already like hit the other side. And it was wild,
It's making me think of, we're talking about what you become used to in terms of people, but even your interpersonal relationships, what they are like with people when you're climbing. There's a story that I'm aware of. This is like, yeah. So there's a very high profile individual who is at like literally at the top of like, music and film and stuff like that. In their back channels, talking about everybody in their life wants to take from them. Mm-hmm. Like an individual like that, to be sharing that in private spaces, it's like traumatizing, of like how they could be so revered across the world, and has all the wealth, has all the fame, could do whatever they want in any space, and yet to get to that space, and you're almost like an object to other people. It's like they're on the top, but everybody else around that little mountain is looking at them like a tool. Like, to go back to your analogy, like they're on the top,
yeah,
and everybody else sees them as a tool of like how they're going to get to the top.
Yes.
And so it seems like there's also
through proximity.
Yes, there's a lack of enjoyment that could come from a relational end. Not even like I'm scared of losing my stuff end. It's a relational end of I can't even enjoy this because I'm not even human at this point. So like you might be treating like the Uber driver as subhuman, but then the person at top gets treated almost like subhuman as well, because everybody's like, how do I use them to jump here and here and here? What can I get to like elevate myself? And it's back to your cycle. And it seems like so many loses across the board for everyone.
I, as a incredibly obscure, non-famous person, don't believe that there's anything wrong with fame. I imagine it's got a nuclear type energy that it really needs to be handled with an incredible amount of wisdom, or it becomes radioactive and can turn on you and everyone around you. I've wrestled with those desires myself. If I'm really honest, I mean, I lived in LA for 32 years, now there is no hospitality person that's ever going to be as famous as someone on top of the world with, music and film. But if I got honest with myself, those desires for attention, to be noticed, for influence, those were burning bright inside of me. And the whole creation of these cycles, they came on a Sunday in March, sitting on my surfboard at Big Doom spot in Malibu. And I was sitting on my board and I was taking an inventory of my own desire for notoriety, my own desire for fame in my space. I'm not thinking I want to be a famous like movie star, but I want Room 40 and the Fig House and the things that I've built and the catering company and our approach to, catering through molecular gastronomy and our unorthodox ways of hosting event. Like I want that to be noticed. And sometimes wisdom comes in those moments where you hear your soul ask a really good question. And the question I heard is why? Why? Why do you want to be noticed?
Yeah.
And if I got really honest with myself, what came up is because it feels good. It's stimulating. And there was an old message that I'd heard decades ago about the difference between stimulation and impartation. And stimulation feels good, but impartation actually creates something. And that was the moment that I saw these two cycles. They literally dropped in my mind, Matthew. And I was like, one of these things creates life. It creates, it has the power to generate something. And one of them devours life. And we do it because it feels good. And we go after it because it's stimulation. But stimulation and impartation are two very different things. And so that's, my own rumble with influence and fame, I just felt that question, why? And that's where the cycles came from. They literally dropped in. I paddled in off my surfboard. I went up to my car. I opened the center console of my Dodge Ram truck. I pulled out a cocktail napkin and I drew these two cycles. And one of them landed in generosity and one of them landed in entitlement. And I was like, I want to be on this cycle. And I could trace so many experiences that just felt generous. I had been the recipient of generosity and all I wanted to do was return that. And then so many other experiences where I felt like I had been mistreated and I became a monster. I was like, do you know I'm the customer? How dare you? Both of those experiences existed within me. And I was like, what is that? How can I be so gracious and such a jerk? How can both of those energies exist inside the same guy? And that's when I saw these cycles. They're energies that are created in our interaction. And I was like, that's what hospitality is all about. It's about creating these cycles that land us all in generosity. And it starts with someone going, I have enough. Would you like some?
Now, if we would go off of your story and your example, right? So if someone's listening and they've observed at this point these cycles that we find ourselves in, and then even you zoom out and you see this kind of unspoken hierarchy and you see these kind of currencies, maybe you could even call them, that would cause you to climb up this hierarchy, like beauty or fame or wealth, power, success. People see you have those and you climb. Now, it is literally a vicious cycle with what it does to everybody that's either on the top or the bottom. So the question becomes like, how do you escape the cycle? And so what would you propose as like the first step for someone? If you say, okay, I need to get to a mindset of feeling like I have enough. If they truly don't believe that they have enough in themselves, like how do you even get to that point to even have that realization to then let that be your posture in life? Because it feels like there's a block there. The block of I need to climb. So when you see that,
so I think the first step is confessing your culpability. I think most people don't actually confess, I'm trying to climb. Most people don't do business with themselves like that and are like, I'm kind of trying to climb right now. And I think the first step is just going, I think I'm trying to climb. There's something unsatisfied inside of me. Energetically, I'm not talking about like, I make X and I'd really like to make Y and that have a little more financial margin. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what I am trying to wrestle out of life. I think the first step is just acknowledging that I'm wrestling, that I'm trying to get something.
And then once you acknowledge that, where would you go from there?
What happened in me was the next step was why? I'm trying to get something. Why? And then being really honest. And our motives change. And I think knowing our motives, I'm an Enneagram 8, and I am always toggling between, am I being strategic or am I being manipulative? That's just the rumble that I live in all the time. And so I don't think we always know our motives, but I think step one would be acknowledging and confessing our own culpability in the flow of the river. And then step two is asking why?
It makes me wonder, do you feel like you talked about power in your book? Do you feel like we need to change our relationship to power itself for this cycle to embark on a new cycle?
I've been very impacted by, there's a Franciscan monk named Richard Rohr, who I'm sure a lot of your listeners know. And, what he talks about is what he believes the greatest threat to our society collectively. He identifies it as the single biggest threat is the absence of elders and the absence of ritual rites of passage that transition boys to men. And that the issue that we have is not men, it is boys in men's bodies. And he identified that Western society is one of the only societies that has abandoned ritual rites of passage for boys. In non-Western society, the elders always take the boys out of the camp and they take them through these series of rituals. And the rituals are designed for the boys to have a visceral encounter with their own sense of powerlessness. They encounter something that will not back down to them. They feel their own powerlessness in their body. And in experiencing viscerally their own powerlessness, it changes their relationship with power because they have felt and they will never forget how powerless they felt in their body. And what happens is that in that reframing, the boy becomes a man by understanding, the purpose of power is power with, power for, on behalf of. That is the purpose of power. And until he has experienced that visceral sense of powerlessness, he wields power over, power against. And that is boy energy. I'm stronger than you. I'm going to dominate you. And when the boy experiences that visceral powerlessness in his own body, it is transformed. So I'm obviously very passionate about that because I had to go through my own process of what does it mean to be a man. The questions that boys ask, am I strong? Am I a man? Am I powerful? That exists in the masculine soul. It's never leaving. I don't care if you and I present very differently. I don't care if, how you operate or how you show up. That's just part of the masculine question. And so I think there is an urgent reframing of power that certainly needs to happen for men, where they understand the purpose of power is power with, power for, power on behalf of. And far be it for me to speak for women. So we need to have a reframing of our why and our what around power. What is power and why does it exist? What is its purpose? And I think when we wield power for, power on behalf of, as opposed to power over, power against, things start to change in a really positive way.
Yeah, it's really hard not to think about this topic and think about what you're saying in a spiritual sense. Mm-hmm. It is very spiritual. There's a level of which our accumulation of things and status and money and fame, whatever it is, success is a mechanism for us to be safe. And it's like climbing to a destination where, I mean, it sounds so ridiculous to say it out loud, but of invincibility, of you have just everything. It's like you have like a whole army around you that you're impenetrable. But it's sort of an illusion. And when you're talking about that example of the boys and these rites of passage, and then there's a powerlessness, you get to a point where then you have to surrender to whatever you want to call it, universe or source or God or something that you ultimately have no power over, like the biggest things in life. You don't have power over when your father is going to die or when your spouse is going to die.
Father War created this retreat called Rites of Passage. On the retreat, towards the end, there is a day of solitude where you go out into the wilderness, and you've gone out into the wilderness with an envelope of what they call the 5 truths of generative masculinity. These are the 5 things that a man must surrender to. And you open this envelope, and the first one, life is hard. The second one, you are going to die. The third one, you are not in control. The fourth one, you are not that important. And the fifth one, your life is not about you. You are about life. And the boy pushes back against all of those things, like you said. And there is a surrender that has to come, like you just said, to these things that are happening. You are going to die. You are not that important. Life is hard. You are not in control. And I think that, to your point of the pursuit of power being rooted in our quest for invincibility, I think we're trying to be invincible against those things. I am in control. I'm not going to die. I'm super important. I want to make life easy, and my life is about me.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I hear you speak, I mean, across history, there's few figures that have kind of spoken to the inversion of power. Clearly, I mean, you mentioned Jesus earlier, but it seemed like he was making a claim about the way that reality works along the same lines that what you're talking about. Ideas kind of like the last should be first, or servant leadership. And so how do you think about those ideas in terms of our posture in which we go out into the world, and that being kind of a catalyzing factor for how we moving forward?
I think the power that we are accustomed to witnessing and craving is power of the playground type. It really is. I think if you think about people who have changed the course of history, or who have created shifts in our consciousness, all of those people had a component of descent to their lives and to their message. And I think that sometimes, okay, so you take the figure of Jesus, who essentially espoused an upside down economy, like if you want to win, lose. If you want to give. If you want to go first, go last. If you want to, you suffer to heal. I mean, we know these things. We know that suffering is what produces, tragically, the greatest healing in our lives. Like, our muscles are suffering and being torn down, and that's how we build them. I think that sometimes we take these messages as unrealistically altruistic. So let's take, it's better to give than to receive. Okay. And we're like, no, it's not. It's better to receive. Like, we can take that as altruistic, thinking that Jesus was espousing some really hard to attain idealistic altruism that we should aspire to, but we know we're never really going to be there. And I think one of the reasons why people were always like, he speaks with such authority, is that I don't think Jesus was coming to like create a religion. I think he was speaking to like how it works. He's like, this is how it works. Look out there. See that wheat? Here's how it works. It's going to grow, it's going to go to seed, and it's going to die, and it's going to grow again. That's how it works. That's how the cycle works. So when he said it's better to give than to receive, knowing we all want to receive, it takes an awareness of abundance to give. We have to feel like we have enough to give. If I feel vacant or a void in my supply, it's really hard for me to like give. But if I'm like, I'm good, I have enough, I'm going to give, I kick off a different cycle. And so again, that's what I think hospitality is. I think hospitality is like, I have enough, so I'm going to give. It's actually better to give, because if I'm trying to receive, there's a taking energy that is pervading my interaction. And like, that's like the soundtrack in my mind, conscious or subconscious. Like, am I noticed? Does he like what I'm saying? Does he see my credibility? Should I name drop?
Yeah, but I think so how does someone actually get to the place where they feel like they have enough? And then the second question is, how is some people will take what you're saying to the extreme of like, I have enough, I'm going to give, I'm just going to let myself get stepped on.
We have a very binary way of looking at things. So it's either I get stepped on or I take. Like, imagine we know the age-old concept of saying grace before a meal. Imagine if we had a meditation before a moment. Imagine if before we went to a party, like you talked about the emotional sobriety guy you had on here earlier and how he books 10 minutes with himself, even if it's on the subway. Imagine if before we went to a party, we like had a quiet moment and we went through this meditation where we were like, I have enough attention. I have enough respect. I have enough applause. I have enough validation. I have enough airtime. And from the abundance of these things, I'm going to give to others. And we walk into the party. That might be we might have a different hang that night, I don't think that feeling like those things are settled leads to an absence of agency or becoming a doormat.
Yeah.
I think someone that feels really settled, there is a groundedness and a confidence and a clear-eyedness and an ability to walk with dignity. And by dignity, I don't mean aggrandizement. I mean dignity. I'll give you an example. You know that I trained in MMA for like 5 years. And in my gym were professional fighters. And seeing and training with guys that are professional MMA fighters, they were the most grounded, calm, chill, kind dudes you could ever encounter. The ones that like you bump and turn around and are like, what'd you say to me? There's a void. They're the ones that are missing something and feel like they need to prove it. Those guys, like you can bump into one of those guys and they're like, oh, sorry. Because that thing is settled. There's a sense of agency.
Yeah. I mean, I asked because people probably are thinking that like the world is eating me alive. And in that sort of environment, generosity or hospitality can feel impossible to them.
There has to be some connection that you cultivate with a power greater than yourself to not feel like the world is eating me alive and there's nothing I can do about it. There has to be, like I said earlier, a garden of quiet that you can create for yourself, and you can connect to that felt sense of safeness. Because if you don't, that's scary. If you are all you have, like, how are you not going to show up looking out for number one, or just resign to a soul deep depression?
I love that. Yeah. I think one of the biggest core convictions that we have as a company, is that there's like a design to the human experience. And, you see that with your physical health or your emotional health. If you eat in a certain way or behave in certain ways, it's going to lead to X, Y, Z outcomes. And I think that this is another conversation that we're talking about the way that reality works. And I think that sometimes when we talk about the way that reality works, people talk about it in a very binary way that you mentioned earlier. And so it's like, well, if I'm not taking from everybody, then,
I'm taken from.
And then it's going to get trampled on.
Yeah.
And, there are certain religious teachings in history that have gotten this weird and wrong, even when it comes to like marriage and other things of like, I'm just going to be a doormat for my spouse or something else, and I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to serve them all the time. And I think that there's like a middle ground, a healthy middle ground, that there's nuance in it. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can like locate that middle ground in what you're saying and get away from like the climbing mindset, I think it could be really healthy. And one of the ideas I think that would lead to that is you talk about this concept of generativity. So can you explain what that is and what that looks like in practice?
I love that you use the word nuance. I feel like so much is lost because we have not created space for nuance. I think that generativity, when I'm talking about generativity, I believe the single greatest power is to create. That is the power to consume or extract cannot hold a candle to the power to create. And when I'm talking about generativity, I think that generativity is the spark that comes when we are in these virtuous cycles of generosity, where like you and I are not trying to take or get anything from each other. Something is settled inside of us. And what happens is we start to operate with a different energy, as opposed to what can I get from this interaction? I'm like, what can I give to this interaction? And I'm trying to give something and you're trying to give something. And energetically, it's a different orb. And out of that orb, something sparks, a new idea, a solution that we hadn't seen, an encouragement that we really needed to hear. Something is created when what's in the field is putting in. When what's in the field is taking and it's entropy, nothing is created because you're getting out, you're taking out of the field. So when I talk about generativity, I'm saying when you and I are in this loop of what can I give, and we're putting something into the field that's existing between us, something's going to spark out of that.
I feel like everybody has had moments in their life, whether they've been climbing this hierarchy or not, where they can identify like little beautiful moments like that. I mean, you shared some in your book, but I mean, if you just have a small act of kindness to someone, you open the door for them, you're giving, but then them looking at you and I don't know, saying thank you or like appreciating. There are certain moments I feel like that if you look back on your life, like something beautiful happened when there was like a moment of giving or generosity, and then there was like kind of like a reciprocal cycle. And for however brief it was, I think you called it like something like just life force in the book, it really is like, wow, this is so sweet. And you kind of just want more of it.
Totally.
Yeah. Even hosting somebody at your house, like we had like a building party with our neighbors a month and a half ago. But I'm like, wow, this is so, like, first of all, people don't do that in New York. Mm-hmm. And it was like everybody, like there's probably like 6 or 7 people on different floors that like came to this apartment, and somebody hosted, had a whole spread, all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is like so, it feels like you're like right in touch with like what life is about in those moments.
And that's like a large, I on the scale of transactions, I would put like hosting a party pretty large scale. But there's micro moments that consist of that same energy, letting someone go in front of you. You're on the elevator, you're late, you see someone like running, and you're like, you have an option, close door or like put your hand in. You feel something when you do that. That feels good because in that moment you tapped into like kindness. It sounds psychobabbly, but you tapped into love. And if you do not know that love is the single greatest power in the universe, like, do homework. Because as much as that sounds like the stuff of songs, it really is true. It really is, like, love is the greatest power. And the power that we're like talking about and reading about and like scrolling about, like, it's the playground type. Love is a power of like a different sort, like on a completely different level, because love has the power to create inside of it. And so that moment that I hold the elevator when I'm late for the person that's running onto the door, I've tapped into that energy source. And that's done something to me energetically. And it feels good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the nuance in the situation is like you laid out a lot of different things, and I don't think for 100%, 100 people, 100% of the time, every single one of those things is going to make them have that very felt sense. Maybe someone's like, oh, well, I'm an introvert, and if I open up a door, that means I have to like share an elevator with somebody, and I don't want to do that. But there's just like a whole plethora of things, and I think that there are certain things that you might relate to more than others. I think it's really interesting.
You're so good at contextualizing, man. I so appreciate it because it's important. It's important for you to think about these examples and these metaphors. It's like, well, how does this feel for an introvert?
Yeah, you know? And I think that, even when you come to a spiritual, religious perspective, whether somebody believes in God or not, let's just say, or what word do you want to use for that? There's been so much that has been made about, well, what is life about? And like, you could almost get lost in some of the rituals that have come along with religion, with prayer and other things. I think like when you are doing these things, you in essence are
collaborating,
connecting with that.
Yes.
And I like you use the word life force, you're creating, but it seems like you're arriving, however temporary it is, at the epicenter of what life is about.
100%.
And if you're spiritual and you feel like that's really like you're tapping into God or the source or universe, whatever, like I really feel like a felt sense that when we operate in this way with nuance, that we could arrive there. So
I think it's important, if you're listening to this conversation, to ask yourself, am I trying to poke holes or am I trying to hear the heart of what's being said? Because there are ways to hear. And everything that I think we're talking about could be, well, what about, and again, it's like, well, yeah, there's a way to look at it. Every single viewpoint is a view from the point with which we're at. So I could be like, do you see the green curtain? And you're like, no, there's no green curtain. And I'm like, yes, there is, Matthew. There is a green curtain. And we're going to sit here and argue about the existence of a green curtain because we're sitting in different seats. So I think that trying to get into the heart of what you and I are talking about, introvert, extrovert, grand gesture, micro moment, it's understanding that these little generous things that we can do. They don't have to be grand gestures. They can just be moments where we're generous. They get us into an energetic flow that is like very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I think when we also think about the people that we want to become to be, I came across this quote. I'm curious what you think about it, but hospitality is how you refuse to become somebody that you don't want to be. And
who said that?
It was an anonymous quote. I mean,
hospitality is a refusal to become someone.
It's how you refuse to be someone you don't want to be. And so, I mean, there's been so much that has been made of the word hospitality.
I know.
You have you mentioned it briefly before, but what is, if you were to define hospitality, what is it?
Making other people feel valued. The intention to value others.
And so
I can't make you feel anything.
Yeah.
But I can set my intention that like the purpose of this transaction, like my why, I want to make you feel valued. And that's why our cognitive understanding of what hospitality is confused right now. Because number one, I don't believe hospitality is an industry. There's no such thing as like the kindness industry, the gratitude industry. Hospitality is a virtue, one of the oldest virtues in society. But within the industry, within the food and beverage industry, there is so much of trying to get value. While simultaneously trying to give value. We really want our customers to feel taken care of. They better respect us, and they better respect the chef. Have you been here before? Do you know how the chef likes you to order? Dishes are meant to be shared. We recommend you order 8, and everything needs to be ordered at one time. Well, I feel super valued right now, you know? So I think that our understanding of hospitality is confused because of what it's become in an industry sense. But I think that simply hospitality is the intention to value others with whatever, which is why it transcends all formats.
Yeah.
It's a way to show up in a conversation.
So what is your starting point then to hospitality? We talked a little about generativity. I mean, we've talked about this idea of if we're showing up in spaces, performing, climbing, doing all these things, and then you talk about like this sort of type host type mindset. What do you mean by that?
I think the host mindset is, I think a host has set their intention to care for others, to make other people feel valued. And I think that when we operate with that mindset in whatever environment that we are in, and again, I am aspiring to embody everything that I am saying, but when we operate as husbands and wives and partners and parents and leaders and executives and team members with whatever it is that I'm doing, I want other people to be valued by my act. I believe that it shifts the interaction. I believe that it changes what our interactions feel like. The hero mindset is understandably archetypal to our experience. You know, Joseph Campbell identified, the hero's journey that was it resonated so deeply because we all feel that. And it named this aspect of the human experience, the design of the human experience. But I think the hero mindset is a lot about our own personal private journeys. But when we are showing up with a hero's mindset in our interactions, heroes don't do great on teams with other heroes. Heroes really want to be the hero in a conversation. Heroes want the mic, the spotlight, the trophy, the applause, the airtime. Like, heroes want to win. And when we begin to sort of let our own personal hero's journey evolve into how we show up in life, we're in dangerous territory. And I think if we can shift from a hero mindset to a host mindset, I think when we think like a host collectively in whatever environment that we're in, I think hosts are constantly setting their intention on, I want this person to feel cared for.
Now, I feel like there's no shortage of need whenever you walk in a room. So like once you start paying attention and operating this mindset, like how do you start reading someone in terms of being able to practically meet a need and like value? Like when you walk in, like someone's face or different cues, stuff like that. You know?
I don't think we have to become savants in reading body language. I think it's really simple. I think it starts with curiosity. I think curiosity is the currency of interest. It has blown my mind how many encounters I've been in and not one question was asked. You're just like hanging out with someone and they like never ask you a question.
Yeah.
Like not one. Like, how's your day? How was your journey here? Where are you from? Like, you don't have to be like a rock star, investigative reporter question asker. You can just like ask a question, and when they respond, you can be like, tell me more. Curiosity is the way that you were able to discern what's a way that I can value them. Like, we can't read people's minds. I mean, some of us can. But I don't think you have to have sage intuition. I think you can just be curious. Show up interested.
Do you think that like we underestimate how starved other people are? Like to be met with like that host mindset. I would imagine like as you practice this, like it's somewhat disarming for people.
I usually have one of two responses is like, that was the best conversation I have ever had. Or like, dude, that guy asked me so many questions. I was like, get out of my space. But no, I think we significantly underestimate how starved people are to be witnessed and to be seen. I think it's really refreshing for people when we can just look at someone and be like, I see you. Listening, I see you. I don't think people are accustomed to that. And I think that at first glance, it's a little bit uncomfortable. But I think people rest into it when they know like, no, I'm good. Energetically, I'm not trying to get anything out of this conversation. I just really want to like know more about you.
How does the atmosphere in the room change?
It's a lot more comfortable. There's usually more eye contact. People look down and like look away a lot in those taking encounters. I guess peace would be the word that would come to mind. Feels a little more peaceful.
I've heard that also. I don't know if this is true or not, but like the first and last 5 minutes that someone walks in a room, like are like create the most kind of psychological memory. Like, do you agree with that? Maybe how they would feel about the space.
I totally agree with that. We always talked about sticking the landing on the welcome.
Yeah.
Like, in catering, I catered, the majority of the things I catered were weddings and like celebrity parties. And in both of those environments, people sometimes come in a little awkward. And I think we all need to feel that sense of, there you are. I was waiting for you. I'm so glad you're here. And that is energetically, different than here I am.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed having you. This was awesome. Let's do it again. That send off that is an authentic acknowledgement of the connection. I totally think it's important.
Yeah. And then, one of the last things I want to touch on is like when it comes to like food and like inviting someone in your home, what would actually make them like someone, like, let's just say invite a friend over, what would actually like fully make them feel welcome beyond like the food or decor or whatever you're doing with the environment?
You cannot make someone feel at home unless you are at home with yourself. So someone is going to consciously or subconsciously sense your own discomfort if anything is unsettled in you. So if you really want to make someone feel at home when they come over, you really have to feel at home with yourself first. You got to do business with yourself. I dig my space. There might be laundry. That's okay. This meal I created, I'm proud about this meal. Anytime someone apologizes for their food, I'm like, don't do that. Do not say like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I kind of like, don't do that. Like, because then I feel uncomfortable. Like I have to like be like, no, it's okay. And so home, the extension of making other people feel at home starts with ourselves. We have to like really feel at home with ourselves first. And then I think as someone comes in, a calm, enthusiastic welcome where like I'm settled. I'm not like scurrying and nervous and like, oh my gosh, I gotta like, but like I'm good. And then curiosity. I think curiosity and interest in others is just so tragically rare and diminishing. And I think people desperately just want to feel witnessed and feel like people are interested in my journey. And so I think the way to make people feel comfortable is asking them some questions. I'd be curious, you ask questions for a living. Like that's what you do. Do you ask questions at hangs?
Yeah.
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 Because that's the juice in making people feel comfortable. It's just like showing them that you're interested in them. It makes people feel really good.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely something about hosting in your home, inviting people over. Environments in New York, I think a lot of people are not used to that sort of behavior. A lot of times you go out to eat if you hang out with someone. And so I've just seen like so much benefit of that type of environment in the home as well. And it seems something where like a lot of beauty can be and intimacy can be created in those environments.
I'm doubling down on it.
Yeah.
I'm literally like building a tasting room at my house to host meals because I think the home is the place for meals.
Yeah. Well, Steve covered so much ground today. Thank you for being here. I only have one more question. I think if you were to circle back on the person who we talked about a lot today, it feels emotionally drained. How would you encourage them to keep showing up with care for others, even if they don't feel like they have
much to give?
Yes.
I would say it is urgent that you create a space for yourself to actually find restoration within. And I think that we get tricked into thinking what restores us. I just need a glass of wine. I just need a cigarette. I need a old fashioned and Netflix. Like that's what's going to restore me. Or I just need a ... Those can be incredibly restorative. I definitely have restored myself with more than one old fashioned. But if you are feeling soul depleted, you have to be soul restored. And that is found in quiet spaces of non-distraction. And you will notice your own discomfort and your own restlessness when you create that space, because it's foreign to you. You are accustomed to being distracted, and you are accustomed to running at a pace, but that pace is absolutely taxing your soul. And the only way that our souls are restored and renewed is where we cultivate that quiet place of subtraction, where we subtract out the distraction, the obligations, I need tos, I ought tos, I should, and we find a quiet place where we can hear our own soul.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate this
thanks
conversation.
For having me. Yeah, I really enjoyed being here.